Hello there my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. So, I'm going to begin by putting forward a very strong assertion. Lucasfilm has the opportunity to absolutely rake it in, cash-wise, and destroy all other box office competition in 2027. And a new rumour suggests they might be planning to do just that. And I just want to specify, I'm not talking about Star Wars Starfighter, which does also release in the same year. Forget Disney Star Wars for just a moment, I'm talking about the original cuts of the original Star Wars trilogy. And today's update follows the big announcement that StarWars.com posted over this past summer when they revealed that for the 50th anniversary of Star Wars, they're going to be re-releasing the original Star Wars movie, also known as Episode 4 A New Hope, into cinemas. But the big question that all Star Wars fans have is, what version is it going to be? Are they going to follow the same approach that they took with the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi? Is it just going to be the special edition? While some new leaked images suggest, either way, Lucasfilm is planning a wider release of the restored theatrical cuts. Earlier this year in London, BFI and Lucasfilm shocked the world with a one-off presentation of the original version of A New Hope. And it was presented by Kathleen Kennedy. So with the announcement that A New Hope is coming back to theatres in 2027, there is a chance it's going to be the classic 1977 despecialized version, the way the movie was originally meant to be seen. The only problem, of course, is going against George Lucas's wishes. I don't know if there's been some dialogue behind the scenes between Kathy and George in recent years. Maybe he's changed his mind. We don't know the full story, but what we do know for certain is Star Wars fans are dying to see the original theatre cuts of episodes 4, 5 and 6. And now we have a massive leak from the Disney restoration team, who claims the studio is restoring the original Star Wars trilogy, and the reports came with proof, actual screenshots, that it is happening. And it should be noted that Disney's in-house restoration teams are among the best in the business. Just look at the recent remaster of Tron. So I hope this is true, because Star Wars fans have been begging for this. And I'm telling you, if Lucasfilm did a wide release of this, a triple feature in cinemas, or a physical release, it would blow everything else out of the water. I would wager that when it comes to the OG fans, they would rather see this come about than most of the upcoming films. And these versions haven't been released since 2006, and even that was a really bad transfer from Laserdisc. Now there have been some fan efforts for a full restoration. Projects like 4K77 are great examples of this, but those efforts have always been limited by having to work with old film stock and the fact those fans don't have access to the original negatives or high quality prints. So it's super exciting that Disney and Lucasfilm might be properly restoring the OG cuts, as they alone have access to the best source material around. And this could spark the biggest revival for the Star Wars brand. Ironically, my friends, not through sequels, not through the new movies, but by restoring George Lucas's original vision. We already know Disney is planning a huge celebration for the 50th anniversary of the classic film, so why not add to that announcement? Why not build on that momentum and hype? And if they do this, I hope these versions get proper 4K UHD releases, and maybe are added to the extra section on Disney Plus, to give Star Wars fans options, whichever version that they want to watch. Because in my time being a Star Wars YouTuber, even generally being a Star Wars fan, not everyone hates the special editions. But Star Wars is one of the most influential film franchises in history, and as such, it deserves to be seen in its original form, and in 2025 in the best version possible. And I do believe the fan reception to this, the box office numbers, would prove what we already know from not just Return of the Jedi's 40th, but other anniversaries of George Lucas's 6-movie saga, The Phantom Menace's 25th, and Revenge of the Sith's 20th. When people talk about apathy towards the Star Wars franchise, they're mostly talking about the Disney era, whether it's the sequels or certain TV shows. But by and large, and I know this from Star Wars events here in the UK, from Celebration, from friends and family who are also big on the galaxy far, far away, passion for the original trilogy and also the prequels still exists, and more often than not, independent of what Disney is putting out. You can also see this in the Star Wars book community, especially with EU fans. Same in the collecting space, large pockets of fandom who don't necessarily care about the newer stuff. And like I say, the numbers speak for themselves. We're talking record-breaking domestic numbers for movie re-releases, and it shows you that Star Wars fans will spend money on the movies they love. And Return of the Jedi's 40th was a special edition. Imagine if you sprinkle in the incentive that this is the theatrical cut, market it as seeing Star Wars the way it was intended to be seen. Maybe not according to George Lucas, but the way fans saw it back in '77. If Disney and Lucasfilm sleep on this opportunity, they are absolutely foolish. And a subject which I've brought up many a time is how Lucasfilm could win back the old fans, because throughout the 2010s and 2020s so far, it does feel like there's been an effort to isolate the original fans, and this would go a long way into winning some of them back. I mean, Star Wars is easily the Citizen Kane of all sci-fi, space fantasy, and space opera movies. It's the one franchise, and if you want to go back to the original film, the one movie that shaped everything in the genre that came after it, so I think it deserves a perfect original version. And a common complaint that you see in those who don't like the special editions is how the late 90s effects don't work well in 1970s and 80s movies. They always look very jarring, and so whether it's for visual consistency or childhood nostalgia, it shouldn't be this hard to watch Star Wars as it looked like when it first came out. Disney and Lucasfilm could be sitting on a goldmine. And the photos which have come out of this, the leaked photos which you can find on Reddit, look insane. If this is a genuine leak, and this isn't just a fan doing their own project and they wanted some clout, we're in for something very exciting. And I think it was back in July or August that we first started hearing that Lucasfilm might be doing this. A few employees reached out to a couple of outlets, and they were the first to raise the alarm, to signal that this could be happening. But I hope they get it right, and I also hope they time this correctly. I think they should reveal this at Star Wars Celebration, which is a good month before Starfighter and around the same time as A New Hope's 50th. So, fingers crossed. Now, as for the George Lucas question, he was always vehemently against releasing the original versions, but who's to say he's not changed his mind? He recently said he's done with the brand and he's moved on, but because he is a bit more possessive of his work, episodes 1 to 6, there might be an exception there when it comes to his newfound apathy. I have seen some speculation that maybe when George signed over the rights to Disney, there was a clause in the contract that said they couldn't release the original cuts. Now, while nothing like this has been confirmed or denied, back in 2019, it came out that J.J. Abrams asked Lucasfilm if they could release the non-specialized editions, and he was told no, it's impossible. But since Kathy did it earlier this year, maybe things have changed. Maybe she went directly to George and he said, fine, do it. Maybe he doesn't care anymore. Maybe he finally said, well, if the fans want it, do it. But that being said, only a year ago at Cannes Film Festival, George Lucas remained persistent that the unaltered versions of the original trilogy should not be re-released, adding, quote, I think a film belongs to its creator. When Michelangelo made the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, he looked at it and said, I'm going to redo this part. And that was George's philosophy going into episodes 4, 5, and 6. And I've said this time and again, had he still been in charge of Lucasfilm, I'm pretty sure he would have continued adding to them. And not just 4 to 6, but the prequel trilogy too. So I do think to some extent, if he did give his blessing, it was probably done reluctantly. I think his opinion on this is still pretty solid, that only the creator can say when something is truly finished. Because back in the 2000s, George used to say, a piece of art is never finished. The creator can go back to it and refine things or add things, and that is part of the ongoing process of art. And in his case, the special editions, including the touch-ups in the 2000s, were the latest iteration of the story, so he didn't want fans going back to the original work. But this could be very, very good news. It is a shame if George didn't have a say in this, but for the sake of Star Wars fans, this is what people have wanted for decades. Share your thoughts in the comments down below, my dear friends, and I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you, always.